cited it.
I started
That's the hallmark. That's the hallmark of a good lawyer.
Okay, that's good. It's 20 minutes past 9 a.m. on a bright, beautiful Tuesday morning here, city of Lagos, smooth 98.1. This is your Love Music, Love Live station. Ayokunmi Kekere-Ekun here with you, ready to walk into a world of conversation. Great talk is on the horizon because that is what Lagos Talks is all about, where we bring issues to the table where you get to play a center role, center stage. You are at the helm of affairs in a way where you get to have your say, express yourself, give your thoughts, your perspectives, your opinions, and we have a great back and forth. That is one thing I love about this show. You can join us on WhatsApp and on the studio line as well. The WhatsApp platform is a 3-in-1 way to join in the discussion. You can send a voice note, you can give us a call, and you can send a WhatsApp message as well. Now, that number is 0911 999 0981 0911 990 981. That is the WhatsApp number. You can also make use of the studio line if you like to call the regular way. Yes, the normal way, normal calls, as people like to say. 0700 2255 981. 0700 2255 981. And this morning, we're asking a question that's already beginning to shape political conversations across the country, and that is, how will Nigerians vote in 2027? 2027 is a big year and it's on the minds and thoughts of Nigerians across the board. Now, SBM Intelligence has released the first wave of its voter sentiment tracker. Now, it's based on responses from 829 Nigerians across 8 states and all 6 geopolitical zones as well. And it paints a picture of a country that is dissatisfied, that is divided, and I think would also say is still undecided. But as the report itself points out, it's a snapshot of sentiment, not a prediction of election results. We need to put that into context. Well, joining me at this time, I have 2 gentlemen in the studio. First of all, the managing partner at SBM Intelligence, a friend of the house, Ikemesit Effiong. Ikemesit, good morning to you.
Good morning. Uh, glad to be here, especially in the 9 o'clock hour. It feels different.
Yeah, it feels different, unusual, but hey, I will not complain at all, at all, at all. And also in the studio, another legal luminary. Of course, they share the same Florian thingy going on. Mr. C in the building. Mr. C, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ayo. Florida to Chemistry.
Florette.
Good morning, Lagos. Florida to all the Kingsmen listening in.
Let's not turn this into a Kingsman Kings.
Yeah, hey, you started
thing.
it.
I know, but I mean, come on. I was just being polite.
Okay.
Now, wow.
All right.
Okay.
I'll switch the mics off.
Cut you well received.
Oh my goodness. Okay, Kevin said, I mean, looking at this particular report, one of the first things that actually jumps out from it is that it's not being presented as a prediction for the elections come 2027, but rather it's a measurement of sorts of how Nigerians actually feel at this point in time. So the survey covered 829 respondents across 8 states and deliberately avoided weighting the data with historical election figures or any demographic projections.
Yeah.
Now, what should Nigerians really understand about this report? What does it tell us? And perhaps more importantly, what does it not tell us?
Okay, so I think answering the second part, the second aspect of your question would be the easier bit. What it doesn't tell us is how the elections will go, because I've had to answer this question a lot over the last 2 weeks, and I think at this point I'd rather not deal with that question anymore. But like you rightly pointed out in your introduction, this is a snapshot of how Nigerians are generally feeling about the state of the economy, about the main political challengers, as well as the president in this election cycle,
Right.
and how they feel the 2023 election is likely to shake out.
27.
The 2027 elections, rather, is likely to shake out. I don't know whether I was feeling nostalgic for a moment there. But what it is, we deliberately called it a tracker for that reason, because we intend to do a few more of this in the lead up to the elections.
Okay.
We just felt it's election season. you turn on the radio, you turn on your television, you go on social media, there's a political head, some kind of political commentator, the politicians themselves, right, and their surrogates talking about the elections, talking about politics, talking about the state of the economy, litigating whether the current administration's track record on the economy, on security, on cost of living, and all of that is either good or not so good. We felt it was important to add to the conversation the Nigerian, right, and themselves. What do they think about the country? How are they feeling about the economy, and how do they feel about the political choices that they are facing? And some of the marquee learnings, right, from the reports to go now to the first part, right, of your question. 8 in 10 Nigerians think the country is not heading in the right direction. 45% of Nigerians say insecurity is their biggest issue. A further 37% of Nigerians say that insecurity and the economy are their main concern in the lead up to the elections. So if you combine that entire bucket, 79% of our respondents said, again, another 8 in 10 Nigerians actually say they are worried about their security. They are worried about their safety. And that's going to be the main thing that they think right now at this point, that their choice of who becomes president in 2027 will hinge on. And I think that really, really says a lot. It's also quite interesting. A majority of respondents say they have gotten their PVCs. Something like almost 80% of respondents say they have gotten their PVCs.
Okay.
And a similar number of Nigerians say that or a similar proportion of Nigerians say that they intend to vote. Now, this is what the people are saying at this point in time, at least according to the data. We still don't think it is indicative of how turnout it will. We still don't think it is indicative of how turnout is likely, right, to be, which is why we modeled two scenarios in the report: a high turnout scenario, where if we have something like 64 to 65%, right, of Nigerians show up at the ballot box in 2027, the opposition does very well. If we have anything below 34, 35%, right, of Nigerians coming out to vote on election day, then the ruling incumbent is very competitive and does well. So answering some of those questions, also questions around misinformation and AI and its likely impact, right, in the elections, those were some of the things that we asked. And I think that those are some of the interesting findings, at least off of the top right now, that stood out to us.
Right. Mr. C, Ikemesit just talked about turnout. Now, historically, from 1999 up until 2023, we've had a steady decline in the number of those who come out to actually vote. In Ekiti State, just on Saturday, we had about 34 to 36% turnout in those elections there.
Yes.
Is it likely? I mean, Ikemesit is looking at a scenario where we have about 64%. Is that 64%? It sounded very foreign to me, 64%. Really?
That's the high turnout scenario. There are two scenarios.
Really? How? Because it sounds foreign to me, bearing in mind what we've experienced over time. Do you see that happening, Mr. C?
That's an interesting question. So I would say it is plausible. And I'm going to say why I say it's plausible. It depends on what happens up until the end of December, when we know for sure who is going to be on the ballot paper.
Okay.
Now, let me first address what you said about EPT, 34, 36%. I dispute those figures because the nonsense they did on Saturday, as far as I'm concerned, and with my understanding of what a proper election should be, I don't know what they did, but I will not describe it as an election. And it's very important we don't, because we will end up miseducating an entire generation of Nigerians as to what an election is. It is very, very important. I don't know what they did, but that is not an election. Now, let's move to your question. Can 65%, 64% turn out? If Mr. Peter Obi makes it to the ballots, the NEC makes it to the ballots, they overcome all the legal challenges that are being raised everywhere, I can see that happening. However, if he doesn't make it to the ballot, and all these frequent challenges to other political candidates, presidential candidates of other parties, they all succeed. And we're then left with the singular option of the candidate of the ruling party, then we could get a very, very low turnout because there are no options. Think about it. The ADC's legitimacy or very existence is being challenged. The PRP candidate, Mr. Donald Duke, is now being challenged by a man, Dr. Yakubu Kingsley. NDC is being challenged. Accord is being challenged. So it almost seems as if somewhere, some rogue elements are determined to forcefully constrict the political space. So my final answer is 64% turnout is possible if the NDC survives the legal hurdles that have been set before it. If Mr. Obi makes it to the ballot box, you will be surprised that you will then find that there will be a reversal of the continuing declining trend of voter turnout since 1999. Because we're now in the fourth year. So the last 3 years have been quite instructive for Nigerians. And I like the SBM survey. I'm surprised they only stopped at 8 out of 10 Nigerians are convinced we're heading in the wrong direction. I'm convinced that figure should be a lot more. And I noticed the regions that believe that they're heading in the right direction. And I see why they did it. Southwest and the Northeast. No coincidence that the top two guys in the country are from both regions. I'm surprised in Northeast particularly that there are people there who can even suggest that we're heading in the right direction.
With all
their zone has been particularly unstable
for quite a bit of time.
At least, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not exaggerating. Let's even say 10 years, because it's a lot more. So I'm surprised they arrived at that. But yes, to answer Ikemesit question, if the NDC makes it to the ballot box, we should see an interesting number of voters turn out for the elections. Now, whether that turnout will then be met with readiness and seriousness from INEC is a completely different conversation.
Okay.
Because the exercise you referenced on Saturday in Ekiti, a number of the Beavers machines didn't work.
And that's one of the age-old problems.
And they budgeted money for these machines. They collected the money for these machines. The machines did not work, and it's been crickets. I haven't come across an official explanation from the electoral umpire as to what happened. No, I didn't say they have not issued a statement.
No,
I haven't.
I get what you mean. I haven't seen one either. Yeah, very interesting days ahead. But Ikemesit, coming back to the numbers, 8 out of 10, 80% or nearly 80% of the respondents, believe Nigeria is moving in the wrong direction. And President Tinubu's ratings on a number of issues, inflation, the economy, security, and so on and so forth, power, they remain low across the zones. Yet, from what we experienced, elections in Nigeria are not always referendums on hardships. Now, how do I put this? Are Nigerians currently voting for alternatives, or are they simply voting against hardship? And can any hypothetical improvements between now and the elections completely change the mindset or change the mood? Could that happen?
Well, I feel like I'm in political science class.
Welcome to the jungle.
Yeah. Let's think about this one a little bit. Could any hypothetical developments change sentiment? I don't know if we're early or late in this cycle. In terms of the mega cycle, obviously, we're close to the end of this administration.
Hypothetical
development. Yes, but could any hypothetical development? They would have to be really, really significant. They would have to be really, really significant. So let's take security, for example, which is the dominant issue that Nigerians say concerns them. How would we measure an improvement in the security environment? Would it be the absence of mass kidnapping incidents? if that's the case, would Nigerians chalk that up to the government actually doing a lot more to actively improve the security situation, or would it just be the absence of reporting? Would would Nigerians be skeptical, right, of those improving lives if the situation with the economy improves statistically on a macro level? Will Nigerians feel that those gains have filtered filtered down to a micro level, that they see it in a reduction in the prices of goods and services, or the likes, right? Or would Nigerians just think that, oh, this is happening way too conveniently close to
To the
the
elections.
elections,
Right.
right? And again, they wear that skeptical hat on. So I'm not so sure. Why we label this a tracker, though, is that we are at least leaving the hypothetical door open that
Okay.
important developments over the course of this election cycle could sway enough Nigerians that we see those changes in the data, more like an ECG reading, or like a blood pressure reading, right? No two blood pressure readings are ever the same in that sense. And so that's why we're obviously seeking to track this. My concern is just looking at the data, and as Mr. C said, only in the southwest and in the northeast is is the sentiment not as bad. So it's not as though it's bad, right? Because 63.5% of respondents in the northeast and 60% of respondents in the southwest still say the country is heading in the wrong direction. It's just not as large as in the other four geopolitical zones. My sense is probably the minds of a lot of Nigerians are already made up in terms of where they think the country is, and the fact that the country will remain in this way, at least in the short term. And maybe we do not see a lot of variance in the data in that respect.
Right. Because you have a contrary a contrary opinion, because I can see you having a laugh here.
Mr. C sounds like one of those Nigerians whose mind is made up.
So I think Ikemesit is right. Picture a 3-hour exam, right? A 3-hour exam. For the first 2.5 hours,
You're bringing back nightmares for me.
a candidate has either been sleeping or has not written a single dot on his answer sheet. For the first 2.5 hours. Then the invigilator or the examiner walks up to him and says, "Why are you still here? I think you should leave." Then the candidate starts shouting that no, that he's entitled to be here throughout the exam, that in fact he's going to pass the exam in the remaining 30 minutes. And my question is, how? Because the examiner who set the time limit of 3 hours knew what he was doing. Because even for the most brilliant students, 3 hours sometimes may be insufficient to write down everything they ought to write. Now, you were speaking about what hypothetical events could influence the major shift. And they're really hypothetical because they're not going to happen. Number one, prodigal sons and daughters are encouraged or persuaded to go on a prolonged holiday till next year. Now, if that happens, you will find that kidnappings will drop. Major abductions will drop. And then they turn on the heat on the small fry, and make it almost impossible for them to succeed. If that were to happen hypothetically, people might start to think, okay, that we've turned the corner, we've gone around the bend, so things are getting better. Let's assume the cost of living crisis substantially improves through some freak event or series of events. And then you can now, price of food drops to really good levels, housing drops to really good levels, transport fares, which never come down, magically come down and stay down. The price of petrol comes down and stays down. Again, all hypothetical events, more like fantasies. Then again, that might influence the minds of voters who are undecided, and even some who have made up their minds. Let's even say power. They, through some freakish events, unnatural events, the worst power supply to any Nigerian household is 18 hours a day. Again, ladies and gentlemen, it's just a fantasy. It's not going to happen. But if that were to happen, hypothetically speaking, they could claim that we've turned the bend and this is just the beginning. We're moving from here. This is just the start launch pad. We're going to move to 24-hour power supply for every Nigerian. These are the sorts of events that could significantly alter the mindset of Nigerians and voters heading into that election.
Right.
But again, based on what is on the ground, based on the data, based on what we've seen so far, none of them is happening.
Let me take a message here from Tayo on WhatsApp. Tayo says, Ayo, please don't underestimate what two kings bring to the table. More so what a third is adding remotely. Floriat gentlemen.
Thank you.
From Floriatin. He says, I'm also concerned about the use of primaries. A particular political party had 10 million plus loyalists. I wonder how they'll be deployed during the elections. The cricket noises are louder in spite of the senior advocate at the helm of affairs is a specialist in law of evidence. Who better to draw policy on data collection and preservation of its value chain? Very interesting. I mean,
Quite.
that 10 million number was still, I think it was close to 11 million. Or
No,
something.
11, no,
Like
10.9, 10.9.
Yeah.
With the abominable counting that went on. No, you can't rule it out because it's the abominable counting that led to 10.9.
And I still wonder how, till this very day, we could say, oh, counting was done and it was done properly.
No. So it speaks volumes of. I'm sorry to say, it speaks volumes of supporters of the ruling party. They saw that nonsense and they kept quiet.
But they weren't the only ones. They weren't the only ones.
Yes, but you see, you saw that and you didn't see anything wrong with it. Then the INEC officials who supposedly were physically present when that nonsense was going on and have remained quiet speaks volumes.
Let's take a call here. Hello, good morning. Very good morning to you.
Morning, Chika.
Chika.
Welcome, Chika. Talk to us real quick. It's all right, Chika, wrap it up. No. Thank you so much. Goodness gracious.
I was going to say, just in terms of hypothetical scenarios that make turn sentiment. So the data for this report was we did the data gathering for this report in March and April of this year, and if you recall, that was the period where the drama, for the lack of a better morning radio friendly term, right? At the AP, within the ADC was at its height,
Okay.
and we literally saw in the data gathering how initial sentiment towards the ADC was mostly positive, and then it just nosedived, especially when two of the leading lights in this election cycle, who were then members of the EDC, left and ended up in the NDC. So those are some of the kind of things that could change and shift, and that's why, again, like we said, we would like to quantitatively track this. But my sense, and echoing again, Mr. C's point, is that on the issues themselves, we're not likely to see a lot of variance and change. I don't like to prejudge data generally, but that's my initial sense. But we may see a lot of shifts and changing on the political side, the actors, the players, the sentiments towards the political parties, depending on their behavior or misbehavior, however you interpret it.
Right. Talking about a shift, do you think that we're witnessing a shift away from the traditional politics we tend to play? Oh, he's my townsman. Oh, we are the same religion people, to a more issue-based politics, really? Or do you think those old realities are still very much alive? Because according to reports, it shows that insecurity, inflation, economy, they dominate voter concerns. But the priorities vary across the different regions. I mean, they don't all think in the same way. But how do you think the mindset is changing or shifting?
Hmm. Ayo is really, really coming. It's really hitting us with interesting
Okay, so,
questions this morning.
Hey, okay.
Yeah. I okay. So my sense, right, and this is not just from helping to put together this report, but also from previous polling that we've done in the past. My sense is that Nigerians still generally, or I should let me not generalize.
some Nigerians.
Some Nigerians, yeah, a decent chunk of Nigerians, right, are able to split and almost bifurcate their approach and their engagement with Nigerian politics and Nigerian governance. So they can simultaneously be concerned about the issues that obviously impact their lives on a day to day,
Okay.
but then park that interest, or park those concerns to the side,
Right.
and still vote according to their interests. It would have been interesting if we actually asked that question right, as part of putting this together. But I even suspect if we even ask that question, the Bradley effect would have kicked in. So respondents would likely give you the politically palatable answer as against how they probably really feel, right? Yeah, about issues. One of the things that we're very cognizant about at SBM is the fact that um, data is important, data is sacred,
Very,
but
very.
but especially when you're opinion polling, people can shape shift somewhat, and when someone else, especially if that person is not like a trusted loved one, someone in their inner circle, right, a spouse, a partner, a sibling, or the likes, they may decide to edit or self-censor, right, and give you sort of the politically correct answer as against, right. So I say this to say, right. So, for example, the favorability sentiment of the political parties, the NDC was by far and away the most favorably viewed political party. I think their favorability rating was 57.4% of the electorate of our respondents liked
Okay.
the NDC. For the APC, it was 11.3%. For the ADC, it was 10.3%. I suspect that the APC's share of the population, it may not be large or significant, but I think a fair amount of APC sympathizers or supporters may actually not be clocking that officially. It may not come through right in the data. So this may be an underestimate, right, somewhat. So that's an example of people thinking, oh, if I tell this statistician, or if I tell this field rep that I like the APC, how would they look at me? Yeah, because we've almost made it like a value judgment type of situation where if you like the APC, you are this and you are that and you are that,
No,
and none of those characterizations are positive.
but here's the thing, right? Under the Constitution, you're entitled to hold an opinion, even if it's been stupidly formed. Own it with your chest. You
No
can't be behaving like
matter how inane it might be.
yes, you can't be behaving like Dr. Hyde and Jekyll.
Stay in one place.
Yes.
Yeah, but I wager that there are millions of Nigerians that hide
So,
and checkers.
so here's the thing. Personally, I know a number of top APC guys. They are ordinarily sensible and intelligent. But once it comes to this particular subject matter, they start dancing all over the place like masquerade. If you've ever been to the village and you've seen a masquerade dance when the music is very
Like it hits a certain
yeah,
note.
aha. Or those salsa dancers. Aha. All of a sudden, the intelligence seems to vanish, and then you can't understand what you're hearing.
Well, Mr. C, that's the ideal, but then we're dealing with reality.
Mm.
So I think is what is worth calibrating that somewhat, and to the meta points that Chika was making around him feeling that the sentiment of the country heading in the wrong direction should be higher. Well, there are some people who are fine with the direction the country is going in. It may not be your cup of tea. It may not float your vote as your boat. As a matter of fact, it may actively aggravate you, but
But it floats their boats
it floats their boat.
Yeah.
for some reason.
Yeah, for some reason.
No, their interests.
Mm.
So that's why what Ikemesit said earlier is true. Some people can identify the issues and park them into a corner. Then their interests. So some people have been made good by the present political arrangement, and their very existence comes from that arrangement. They cannot go against the grain publicly.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, exactly. And sometimes some of their concerns there may be a parallel line between some of their concerns, right, and yours, but or the general concerns that you hear on TV and on radio, but sometimes you hear how their concerns are expressed, and you're like, oh, clearly, at least you're doing well enough in this economy. So for example, I know of some folks in some circles who are fairly on the fence about the current administration. But when they complain about the cost of living, their concerns are like, I used to be able to afford business class. I can't afford business class anymore. And you're like, most Nigerians would love to have your concern.
True.
Can you
So-
imagine? You're probably you can't afford business class anymore.
Yeah.
Many people can't even afford.
but
it.
that's a
No, as you were speaking, that was literally what popped up in
Yeah,
my
yeah.
head. Was that experience
Well,
was
to be fair
even
to
for me
those
was
guys,
visceral.
Concerns vary from individual to individual.
That is true.
So
That
what
is
is
true.
a concern, say, for the richest black man in Africa would not be a concern for Mr. C or Ayo or Ikemesit. Concerns have grades.
Mm.
Fair.
You get level.
Yes.
Goodness gracious. Okay, gents, we'll have to bring the conversation to a close slowly but surely. But one thing I want to say here is that the reports, it comes back to about three different things: the economy, turnouts on the elections,
Yeah.
and trust information. And we know that between now and January, it's about 7 months.
No, 6.
6
Okay,
months?
no, okay.
Seven.
Seven.
7 months or thereabouts. If you had to identify one thing that Nigerians should watch most closely between now and then, whether it's inflation, whether it's security, whether it's political alliances, whether it's turnout, or something else entirely, what do you think it will be? I'll bring both of you in on this one, but you can for this one first.
So I think where we'll see the most, we've already sort of addressed this, right? The issues Nigerians appear fairly fixed. I don't think you're changing the sentiment of a lot of Nigerians on security and the economy necessarily, or jobs. Between now and January, I think where we will see the most variability would be on the political side of things. So which political alliances get stitched up, which we've already seen already in this cycle, right? One party go from being at the front of the queue on the opposition side of the dial to then being an also ran in that sense. So I think it's in that space that we'll see the most variability,
Right.
and that is likely to have the most impact on how Nigerians feel this election cycle is going to shake up. In the end, it is still, I think, the APC's election to lose, right? And so because of that, the quality of the opposition will perhaps be the single most critical indicator
Hmm.
that will define how this particular election cycle will look. So, how that opposition looks like, whether there would be a grand opposition alliance, we can never rule out these things, right? Especially, like Mr. C says, we get to the last 30 minutes of the exam, and then all of the opposition parties realize, oh, damn, we have to, do this if we're going to be competitive, right, with the APC and or against the APC and on and on. And so I think it's the political side of the dial, right? That would be that would be the most important and the most critical.
Mrs. Dick.
I share the same sentiments, but a bit differently. Nigerians will look to the courts because it's the courts that will decide who the final flag bearers are. And it's really a shame that we've gotten to this point. Under the Buhari administration, I don't recall any of this nonsense going on. So it's a court that will determine the fate of the ADC, the NDC, our court, and any other viable political PRP. And Nigerians want to see what are the courts saying. Because it's what the court say that would then determine the next course of action. Do Nigerians turn up? Because if we're left with a scenario where the sitting president is the only candidate through a manipulation of the legal system, then it will be a real big shame to Nigeria.
That would be unprecedented, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but of course, supporters of the administration will say it's not us, it's the courts. That you should follow the law, follow the requirements. But they're the same people setting all the fires everywhere. If you're so popular, your primaries, you claim almost 11 million people turned out. And at the last election, your candidate officially got 8.6 or 8.9 million votes.
Yeah.
Please, meaning that in the course of 3 years of underperformance or next to no performance,
more people showed up for the political primary.
2 million plus Nigerians believed in your underperformance and came out for you. Head to the polls.
Gentlemen, we need to go, but something came to my mind. So we talked about this on before we started Freshly Pressed. I didn't remember. I just need to bring it in here right now. Talking about how things have changed in terms of the numbers and everything, and what is going on with the parties right now. It's actually very interesting that pre-2023, I don't think the issues that we had to do with internal wranglings within the parties and whatnot. Oh, this candidate is not, I'm the chairman, I'm the chair, this, and so on and so forth.
It happened in the PDP.
How about the other parties? It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't mainstream. Was it?
Yeah, true. It wasn't mainstream. But then, if we remember, in 2023, we were still operating under that orthodoxy of the PDP being the only real competition, right, to the APC. And the internal jockeying within the APC was as to who, one, Buhari would anoint, and two, if that person was Tinubu, would Buhari actually anoint him, or Tinubu sees the initiative by the scruff of his neck. And the latter happened, right? And the former, now late president had no choice than to basically stomach the choice in echoes of the party in that sense. I think what's different in this cycle is that it appears to be happening in every political.
That's the thing.
In every political party, to the point where it stops feeling like happenstance and it almost feels like a pattern, but a pattern engineered by whom, on behalf of whom. So
by the ultimate beneficiary.
Make
Mr. C said it.
Make of that what you will.
Yeah.
All right, let me take this message. Okay, Tayo says, my concern is that I can't tune away from Smooth and Ayo isn't a KCOB. He feels left out. No, Tayo, I do not feel left out. At all. This is just long-standing beef that we've had over the years. It's just what it is. Just what it is, I have to carry on that tradition in any way that I can. Obina Gallagher says, the bitter truth remains that religious and tribal sentiments, partisan and And partisan politics remain Nigeria's biggest problem. And so, very unfortunately, it's impossible for Nigeria to unite, be peaceful, coexist, progress, and move forward. There are people who are ready to eat the president's plate of, I have to, bleep that, irrespective of how bad things are, just because of religious and tribal sentiments, which make our situation way, way, way too bad and complicated to solve. All right. Thank you very much, Nabina, for your very colorful messages. Thank you for sending it as you always do. Thank you, Tayo, as well. Thank you, Chika. Thank you to everyone who has been a part of the show this morning. Ikemesit, thank you so very much. Number one, for the report, actually very eye-opening, and for coming in to talk about it. I appreciate that.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me, Ayo. Thank you, Mr. C, too,
Mr.
for
C.
enlightening me.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ayo. Thank you, Ikemesit. Thank you, listeners. Do go out. Have a wonderful, wonderful day ahead.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, indeed. Carpe diem. Seize the day, as I love to say. Join us on our socials. On Instagram, you can find us at Smooth981. On X, we are at Smooth981FM. I personally, you can find me at Ayokunmi_K on Instagram and on X as well. It's smooth music all the way on from here on out till 11. I'll be with you, taking you into a Tuesday morning. I'm pretty sure that you are ready to get into work mode, and I'm here keeping you company as well. This is your Love Music, Love Life station, Smooth 98.1.
Yesterday, I meant fashion.
When?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
actually, the question.